My
Yeah?
life's dull. I have no fun at all.
Yeah. Fun. Depends what you mean by fun, really.
Here we go.
That's right. Have I got it?
Yeah.
Ah! I think it's other people's idea, though. Other people think, oh, life can't be as much fun, like now that, or just for people with disabilities in general, people look and think, oh God, you can't be having much fun.
There is no burden about being disabled. It's living your life. And okay, I've got to live it differently. I can't, fall down on the floor and play and roll with my dog or whatever, but I can sit in my chair and have my nephews on my lap, and I can hug them and hold them. I can still be who I am. I just do it sitting down.
I suppose spontaneity is not so.
You have
not
to
so
plan
much spontaneity.
fun.
Yeah, you have to plan fun.
You?
I have played wheelchair rugby or murder ball, broken fingers and smashed into those guys on the sides, and I love every minute of it.
Being alive is fun, isn't it? So there's only one difference, isn't there? Not being alive. So
fun to me is having a good laugh and actually really making for people to feel really good about themselves and be in a situation where you can have a good laugh.
I don't know why fun would be affected by it. It's hard to plan things. That can be difficult sometimes, but the rest of the time it doesn't bother us, doesn't put us up or down. We do the same things as everyone. We go out and we have nights on our own. We have fun out with the family. We go places.
It can affect it. It can. Sometimes it can be more fun. Because as much as there's days on the pills and we have to cancel a dinner date and things like that, there's also times where it's just hilarious, where I can't get a sentence out and I'm just hilarious, like legally wasted, just a mess. And you crack up at me, eh? Try to have these serious conversations and I'm trying to get a point out, or I'm trying to cook a meal and just drop the whole thing on the floor. Sometimes it is funny.
Here's my plane. Hello.
Hi, welcome aboard.
All these ladies for me.
Wheeled up to the check-in counter, and a woman, she just kind of looked at me and went, "Pete, we've got a wheelchair here. What are you going to do?" She didn't say hello, how are you, or anything. She just said, "We've got a wheelchair here. What are we going to do?" And I was just
Dear.
oh no.
Well, I can never fill out my immigration forms, and you're on the plane, and the air hostess, and weirdly, because of course this, as a partially blind person, you wouldn't want the window seat. I love the window seat, so I always choose the window seat, and because of the view. And but it meant that I was here, and the air hostess was in the aisle, and I had two people beside me, and I needed her to fill out my form. So at the top of her lungs, rather than saying, "Would you like to come to the front cabin with me and we'll fill this out?" "So, love, have you got TB?" "No." "Any criminal convictions?" And honestly, the entire plane must have had it. And the most embarrassing thing of all was when she said, "Well, who's your emergency contact?" And I'd say, "My mother."
Okay, it's my mum too.
When I'm travelling, I get these kind of attitudes from people. It's kind of patronising sort of way of speaking to me. That's like they don't speak to everybody else on the plane like that.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like,
I have
sweetie,
had that.
how are you today? And it's kind of like, oh my God, I'm not 8,
Yeah.
I do quite a bit of travelling, and so coming back into the country and filling in my customs form, and they ask, "Oh, you've obviously been drinking quite a bit on the plane, or do you need help to get from here to the baggage terminal?" And it's kind of like, dude, I've just travelled all around Europe by myself. I'm sure I can get to the car park.
I forge really, really strong relationships with the people who sit next to me.
Yeah,
I'm
actually,
just
I
like,
do that too.
every single flight I go on, practically best mates by the end of
Yeah,
it.
no,
Bought a
you-
copy of my CD, you know, and they're really helpful. I mean, like, I actually
Yeah,
find
that's
that
true. I
the
do
immediate
that.
person, I would possibly avoid flight stuff. I go for the human touch.
One little travel anecdote was we were on a plane coming back from Australia or going to Australia, and the steward, we get on the plane first, of course, we get into our seats, we're in the cheap seats in the middle of the plane, and the steward comes up and he starts telling us about all the safety stuff. If there's a fire or we have a crash landing, you just stay there and let everybody else get off the plane. So no, that's not how it's gone down, mate. She's on my back and we're running out the door first over the top of everyone else.
I always say to people, if you're going to travel overseas, take a disabled person with you, because travelling anywhere is the best thing when you're disabled. You get priority, you get a porter wherever you go, so as soon as you get off the plane, there's somebody waiting there for you to grab your luggage for you, to take it through immigration. You get through immigration quicker because you go through where the pilots go.
Because we are in a foreign city most of the time anyway, because we don't know. That's what blind faith is, when you actually take one step after the next, not knowing what's actually going to be there. You know, I think travel is... I'm really happy. I'm actually probably safer travelling on a plane to another city than I am negotiating New Zealand. And that's for sure, because we have no transit system. Sorry, Auckland Council, love your work.
Well, when I'm there, we'll sort it out.
Yeah.
Stop.
But all I can say is I'm never ever having a relationship again with someone who can't drive. Given that I can't drive, that was a disaster. Honestly, it's the first criteria. It's like, so do you drive? And then do you have a car, actually?
I do love my car and it goes pretty quick, so I do kind of, I guess it's my way of, I guess I'm on an even keel then, aren't I, with everybody else. I got checked out the other day by this guy in the car and I was like, he has no idea that I'm in a wheelchair, and it was kind of weird that that was my first thought, but I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
No one expects me to drive, and in fact, one time I was driving along and I had someone following me, and they watched this woman going across in front of us. I'd stopped at the giveaway and I didn't watch her, and she was busy looking at me the way I was driving, went right across the road and ran into a pole.
When you live in Auckland, I mean, I happily walk everywhere. Kate and I both walk. But there are times.
Great ass. And you're resentful though. When I'm walking, I'm really resentful. I may have a great ass, I may write songs, I may get fit, I may meditate when I'm walking, but you're still resentful at the end of the day. It's like, this is actually, no, I would like some kind of transportation.
Nice man to pick you up.
Eh?
No, that's not what I said. Back to you. Cut that out.
I didn't used to drive. I had my first job about 16 and I was working for CCS at the time. So there was a lot of other colleagues and friends there with disabilities, and it was all lovely. And they used to call me Princess. So I'd get to work and they're like, oh, Princess is here. Hello, Princess. And I was like, hello. And I thought it was all my shoes, because I had beautiful shoes back then. And then my girlfriend, I'm still friends with her 10 years on, and I said, oh, that was nice. You used to call me Princess at CCS. And she said, no, dear, it wasn't. It was quite an insult. And I said, oh, I thought I had lovely shoes. And she goes, oh, you did have lovely shoes. She said, but it's because how you used to be taken care of so much and you had no independence. I said, oh, I had independence. She said, no, you used to get driven to work. Then Molly's dad would get out the wheelchair, he'd put it together, he'd lift you into it, push you up the ramp, take you all the way to your desk, and then come back for you at 5 o'clock. You couldn't even self-transfer or push up a hill or get your chair together. You didn't know how it came apart.
And I think that's really freaks people out when you're at the supermarket and you're putting your wheelchair into the car and they come over and go, how can I help you? Or they just stand there staring, because they're kind of like, well, once you get the wheelchair, and then what are you going to do? Yeah.
The one thing that I think people need to learn is that when I'm getting out of my car, like if I'm at the supermarket or something like that, I don't need any help. It's cool. I got it, you know. This is probably the 10th time I've got in and out of my car that day, and you know I know how to do it. I've been in a wheelchair 18 years. I've done it probably 4-5 million times. I'm good, but thanks for asking. It's good to see you out.
Sometimes people are like, no, she's just being polite or something. So then they'll pick up the wheels, and I'm like, no, really, I'm really okay.
Yeah.
You have to try and convince them. You're kind of like, how do you think I got in my car, drove to the supermarket, got my groceries, and now I'm, if I needed help. But
Once I lose the ability to drive, it's going to be a lot harder for me, because driving gets me to where I want to go. It gives me an escape. It gets me to places, so it has both effects. It carries me to something I want to do, or it carries me away when I want to get away. And it's easy to do. I can just get in and drive off.
But we were in Royal Oak and we got to the roundabout. She said, go hard right at the roundabout. I was like, yeah, I got this. Get to the roundabout and I went hard right, like the wrong way around the roundabout. So then I got scared off driving again for a long time. But I'm good now, yeah.
Do some roast veggies, eh? Roast veggies? What do you like at peeling?
Interesting. Never really done peeling much before.
Never tried it? All right, we'll do it then.
I was in the supermarket the other day and this lady came up to me and said, wow, look at you, all by yourself and doing your grocery shopping. And I wanted to say to her, yes, well, I am 28.
We'd go up to the shop and the shopkeeper would go to Dad, what does she want? And he's like, well, ask her.
Like you get the supermarket example, oh, you poor lassie, how do you do this? It's lovely you can do the shopping. I don't take that the wrong way, because it's a lovely, sweet old lady. And her day I was lame, and it would have been a miracle for somebody in my situation to do the shopping.
I have a funny supermarket story.
I've got a technique with the trolley that I push and grab, and I can actually do the whole thing all by myself and push and grab and get things down. And
Ginger nut.
Bonnie, look. Bonnie, get it.
She's so clever.
Bonnie, get it. Get it. Good girl.
Oh, that's
girl.
so cool.
Yay. Bonnie, get it. Get it. And give. That's it. That's a good girl. Good girl. That's it.
I'll put it on and you can pay.
Okay then, fair enough. For some reason, they always put the organic stuff on the high shelves.
Yeah.
I don't know why they do that.
I had surgery and I was in a chair and I was going down a supermarket aisle and I just happened to look up and there's that window where they all have the staff room and there were people looking at me and I was like, They kept wheeling around and then all of a sudden this woman ran up to my mother and was like, what's your daughter's name? And Mum was like, I'm not giving you my daughter's name, who are you? And they were like, it's not anything bad. What's your daughter's name?
It's not anything bad.
And then so Mum was like, Christy. And then all of a sudden she ran off and then my name came over the intercom. And Christy Munro, please come up to the front desk, blah, 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 blah. And so it was like, oh, well, this is not embarrassing. So here I wheel up to the front and they hand me a packet of biscuits that were off and a magnet that was a grater that made a noise. And I don't even remember what they said. It was just like, good job for being out there. Yay.
One day I was by myself and I didn't want to ask someone to pass something down. It was a feminine product. So I went to the next aisle and got a broom, and normally I could flick things down and grab just one. I flicked it, the whole shelf came down, and then people just cracked up laughing. But it wasn't in a nasty way. It was like, oh, I'm glad that wasn't me sitting in a sea of tampons. So, it can bring a laugh too. It can bring a funny side.
After my accident, I thought, what am I going to do with my life? Because what I'd done before my accident was managing restaurants, and you just couldn't have done that from a wheelchair. And I was just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And when I started working, I remember being in a traffic jam, and there were all these people and I was just like, I'm going to work. That's so cool.
Earning my own money. Love being able to go there every day and go, I did this work, so this money's mine because I did, and...
We like you earning your own money as well. We're quite fond of that.
It never
came across to me that people would be surprised that I worked, because it was always going to be my end result. I was always going to work because I didn't want to live on a benefit for the rest of my life or be dependent on my parents. So that was just my natural goal. But the amount of shock I get that I'm genuinely working and I'm shock horror responsible for stuff, it's just very surprising to people.
You know, you went to school, you went to uni, and then you got a job. That's always just what it was in my brain.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when I find out that it's 60% of people don't work with disabilities, that it was like, what?
When I go out, like, I notice that people don't actually say to me, oh, what do you do? Because that's kind of like the first thing people used to always ask me. And I used to be quite proud to say what I did do in a previous life, you know. I used to run like really top restaurants in London. I used to be, oh, cool, it's good. I like this question because it's a good thing that I do. And I'd be really happy to tell people what I do now, but it's kind of like I have to work around a way to tell people what I do, because people
don't expect you to work. You're right, actually, because I get asked that question less too. What do you do? And when I say I'm a teacher, they go, oh, okay.
How does that work?
I remember going to a party with a whole lot of bankers, and it was friends of mine, and he was a bank manager, and he invited me to a party with a whole lot of other bank managers, and they didn't know how to talk to me because they didn't like to ask me what I did for a living, and that was a really important status for them, so they avoided me like the plague. And I didn't make an effort because I wanted to see the reaction. You know, I just sat back and just waited. And they didn't come near me because they didn't want to talk about what we did for a living.
And I think people find it easier to associate with you if you look just like them. And in business, I've noticed it as well, that I think some people, without even realising it, find it a difficult concept that a young-looking disabled woman who's sitting down lower than you can hold a position of power in business and can have that intellect and that capability. And so I do the Dress for Success. A lot of women I know do it, but I think it's even more important for me to do that.
If you're particularly in a wheelchair, I don't know about other impairments, but I know when you're in a wheelchair, if I stand in court, I'm treated with the same respect that other lawyers will treat each other. If I'm sitting down, I'm disrespected immediately.
I just think that there's definitely a misconception out there that employers see the things that we can't do, and what they don't realise is that, you know, every day we're having to work stuff out on how to get through life. So our problem-solving skills and our ability to adapt to new things is, you know, those skills are really high and strong. So as an employee, I think, you know, we're great candidates.
Jesus, you're heavy.
100 times a day you're thinking outside the square. That is not something you can be taught. You know, that comes from every day thinking, planning, negotiating every set of circumstances you go into.
It definitely does give you a different perspective on things. But how do you, I don't know, I haven't quite figured out how you can prove that to a potential employer.
Start at the bottom, mate. You're making cups of teas first.
And you've never doubted about the fact you need qualifications, have you?
No.
Because, I mean, the idea is that if she gets, well, when you get your degree, that will mean that you can go into the skilled workforce rather than the unskilled workforce, which requires people to do things with their hands.
I mean, you know, we've all got the ability. Sometimes we've got to get those A's just to be looked at. And sometimes we aren't even looked at that level. So we do have to work twice as hard. But at the same time, it develops our ethic for working.
It just makes me feel worthy. I feel like I've got a reason to get up in the morning. Like, And in between jobs, when I was looking for jobs and didn't have any, or between uni and then getting a job, and I wasn't getting any, I was just like, oh my God, will someone please hire me? Because you go into interview after interview after interview, and they go, oh, wheelchair, nope.
You're looking for a job now, aren't you?
I would say it would be other people, and I think it's perception. I think it's just having other people able, altogether, if people could actually learn more empathy for each other.
People just accepting me for who I am, and I wouldn't mind being a bit taller, but I can't help it. Oh well. But yeah.
Well, I used to be taller and I'm shrinking. I can tell you it's not all it's cracked up to be, really. But that's interesting, because as soon as you asked that question, the word that came into my head was the very word you used.
What?
Acceptance.
Yeah.
Living with a sight impairment has made my life incredibly complex, and I think at times, it's been deeply challenging. There are things that have been deeply challenging. And yet, at having reached this sort of stage of my life, I feel like I'm getting to a point where I'm really starting to value that richness of experience, deeply and honestly value it.
There's nothing I want to change, because I don't want to think about, you think, if I start thinking about, why did it happen to me, and then think about what would I change now, well, it just eats away at you. So I just don't want to change anything in my life. I don't want to trade it in for a younger model at all, or, I keep threatening to a Russian. I need a big Russian girl who can lift me a bit more.
Yeah, it's too hard a question. It's a really hard question. One thing I could change, I'd have to think about it for a minute.
If all those assumptions disappeared and people were more aware and more informed about everything, that'd be great.
If there was one thing I could change, it would be society around me understanding that it's not the same all the time, that some things are more easy to understand, and I think people have an easier time with an SCI or blind or hearing impaired. I think people are still having a harder time getting to terms with the multiple sclerosis muscular dystrophy thing, where you can see someone and they're even walking one day and the next day they're lying in bed half dead. It's not a static thing, and it's progressive. So how you view yourself needs to change, and how everyone else needs to view you needs to change.
There's a huge section of society here that I think would be really sort of well advised to join forces, I guess, and work towards change. And I don't think we're particularly good at that.
It's back to the dating thing. I'd like women to be able, and men, because it's not just, I was talking about me, but in general, women and men, not to look at a person for what they look like, but who they are, and actually stop being superficial about it, and actually start to understand the person and actually get to know the person, so that, I think we'd all have a richer life. It'd be really nice to think that people share their lives not just because of the way they look, but because, they've got so much to offer each other.
At least be prepared to support one another and really engage. And I don't think we're particularly good at that at the moment. And so I think if I could change one thing, it would just be to really, stick a piece of dynamite under our collective asses and get things moving, because I think, we could do a lot more than we are at the moment.
one thing that you would change?
If there was one thing that I could have, I'd love to have one hand, just one hand, on this side.
What would you do with that hand?
I would, Curtis Palmer, I would hold a girl's hand with it.